Hey guys, and welcome to Module 6, where we're going to be covering social media. This is pretty exciting because social media is one of the most asked questions I get. How do you take social media, how do you create high engagement, and turn that into profitable bookings? That's exactly what we're going to be covering, so you're in the right space. If you think your social media isn't working for you, you definitely want to watch this. If you think it's pretty good, you still want to watch this because what I found over the last couple of years teaching this to other business owners is that I have yet to come across a business owner that engages and uses or utilizes social media the way that we do. And I think part of that's because what I'm about to show you is something that I have pieced together from the marketing that I've learned, and I haven't been taught this by someone else. It's come together from a number of different marketing campaigns and angles that have worked, and I've kind of experimented with this over the years. Started off, this is a work in progress over the last, I'm going to say 5 years of really trying to continually test and leverage and figure out social media. In the beginning, I was pretty bad at it, but I managed to build up decent social media followings for the tourism-based accounts that we've worked with, and more importantly, we have booked hundreds of thousands of dollars through our social media accounts, both Facebook and Instagram, without having and using paid ads. I will disclaimer, we have used paid ads absolutely, but I'm saying that we've managed to book hundreds of thousands of dollars without using paid ads, so directly through organic. And then leveraging that, you can decide whether you want to use paid ads or not, but you don't have to. So let's jump into things because it's pretty awesome, pretty exciting. First, I really need to show you guys what it looks like when it's not working. And it's pretty subtle, and I'm gonna have you take a look at your own social media to figure out whether it's working for you or not. So here's an example of social media that's not working. I'm also going to be talking about Instagram primarily because that is one of our core driving channels. However, everything I go over today is going to be considered evergreen. And so what that means is the tactics I'm teaching you or the strategies I'm teaching you, they come from a high level, and you can use that no matter what platform you're using. You'll be able to use the concepts because the social media channels will change. But today we're going to be talking primarily using Instagram, maybe a little bit of Facebook as well. So here's an example. Instagram post. What I did, I went out to Instagram and I just typed in resort. And from there, I just scrolled down and I picked any random resort. I pulled up a post, and this was literally the first post that came up. And it is a fabulous case study of what not to do. And the reason that it was so easy to find is because everyone's doing the same thing and it's not working. And I'll explain why that is. So I'm going to break down this post for you, show you what not to do, have you take a look at your own social media, see what you're doing, and then what we're going to do is we're going to try and correct it. So why is this post not working? First of all, the photo itself. This is not a bad photo, but what you need to do when you're looking at your photos, you need to look at any imagery through the eyes of your guest. So I view photos as a form of copywriting. And copywriting, the number one rule in copywriting is it isn't about you. It's about your guest. It's about your, well, in general in copywriting, it's about your customer or your client. It's about what they care about. The question is the customer or client looking at this photo, is this the number one thing that they care about? Is this the scene that they care about when it comes to the setup for their wedding? It might be, but I think that we can do better. I think we can look at some of the details that they would care about and not just the overall scene. The other thing that is the major drawback here is the way that this post is communicated. And the reason that there's such a big myth out there in social media, the myth is that you just post a photo, it's about the imagery, and none of the rest matters. I think, and I've proven, that that is absolutely not true. Here's where most businesses go wrong. In order to sell, in order to make a booking happen, you have to have an audience that's listening. You have to have an audience that's engaged, and you have to have an audience that you're having a conversation with. If you're not having a conversation, if the other side is not listening, you're not going to be able to sell them anything. And this is where most businesses, they can't figure out how to make this happen. This business is doing the same as most other businesses that are out there. So let's break down the actual communication on the right-hand side of this post. First, how stunning is this wedding setup in the Bayview room? Okay, not engaging me right off the bat with the title. I it's all it is describing the photo, which I'm already looking at. So to me, it's not highly engaging. Second part, 2019 has been the busiest wedding season to date. To secure a spot for 2021, inquire with us today. Again, looking at copywriting, why should I, the guest or the potential guest, why do I care? Why do I care that it's been their busiest season? I don't. And that leads into the call to action here, which is it's building urgency, building scarcity, which are things that I agree with. And it's good to have a call to action. The problem with this is that scrolling through this resort, which I don't have any affiliation with or have any clue who these guys are, but scrolling through their posts, they had call to action, call to action, call to action, which means that in every post they are selling. And if they're selling, you know what you're training your social media audience to do? You're training them to ignore your posts because no person wants to be continually sold to. So we need to make sure if we're doing selling or call to actions, which I'll show you how to do properly, we're doing that at a very minimum, and we do it only after we've proven that we have engagement with the audience. And I'll show you what that looks like. So before we move on to the next slide, what I want you to do is I want you to pull up your own social media channel. If you have Instagram, pull up your own Instagram and start scrolling through and look and see if all you're doing is just describing the photo. We are leaving a massive amount of opportunity on the table. So if that's all you're doing, then you want to pay attention to the rest of this presentation. All right. As you're going through that, let's jump into the next slide and I'll start sharing with you what it is we're doing differently than any other organization that's out there. So what we want to do with our social media is we want to tie into the concept of building a movement. And the reason that that's really important is because in building a movement, you get people to advocate for you, you get people to tell their friends about you, and you have concepts that people buy into and they feel passionately about, and that's where you get high engagement. Now, I did some studying into what goes into building movements, and I found this concept from a guy named Russell Brunson. And Russell, he talks about this where he did his own research into what creates a movement, and he found that there was 3 core things. And when I figured this out, I was able to apply this to my own business, and we saw results that were pretty spectacular with it because we had tried various marketing campaigns on social media that fell flat, for months and months and months. They just fell flat. And then I applied the concept of the movement to our social media channels. And as soon as I started applying the concept of the movement and we started communicating these 3 aspects, all of a sudden our engagement skyrocketed. So what are these 3 points? The first is you need to have a charismatic leader. What that really means on social media is that you need to communicate from the perspective of one individual that your followers can fall in love with. One of the major mistakes that's being made on social media from a business perspective is we, I should say, as businesses, often communicate as a collective. So in other words, when we're creating a post, often the communication channel is using we. So, hey, we here at this resort feel this, or we here at this resort wanted to share this with you. It's actually a lot more powerful when you create a personality, one personality that your audience falls in love with, and you communicate from an I perspective as one individual. So that's point number 1. And we can go a lot deeper into this stuff, but for this, this is all you need to know. By the way, if you want to go a lot deeper into this, we do go a lot deeper into the concept of the movement and what all of these facets look like in Module 2. So you can always go back to Module 2 and check this out. But this is how we utilize it in social media. Number 2, the cause. So we have to have something that gets our guests emotionally invested and our prospective guests emotionally invested. The cause is, what is it that you're doing that you're passionate about that's not anything to do with the accommodation or the tour itself. If you think that you're selling accommodation or you think you're selling a tour, you're way behind from a marketing perspective. People are not buying accommodation, they're not buying the tour. They're buying something else. They're buying a specific experience. And so your job is to figure out what is that experience and how do I really communicate that well, leverage it, and let people understand that that's what I've got. So in the famous words of a previous marketer, people are not looking to buy a 3/4 inch drill bit, they're looking to create a 3/4 inch hole. So understand what it is that the buyer is really, really going after, and then tap into that from an emotional perspective. And we'll share with you a little bit more of what that looks like as this presentation goes on. And then the third is a new opportunity. And this is where, again, a lot of businesses fail. A new opportunity, let me explain what that is not. A new opportunity is not a better experience. Better gives an individual the ability to look at something that is in the same field and do a comparison. If you're better than, that implies that there are other similar experiences that are like yours. If you present a new opportunity, then what we do is we are subconsciously telling individuals there's nothing else out there like us. So we need to make sure that we're presenting what we've got as a new opportunity and not a better or a bigger or a faster or stronger or whatever it is. Instead of using an ER, you need to make sure that you're focusing on the new opportunity. So we'll show you guys what that looks like kind of as we go through this presentation. But I want you to keep this in mind because I don't see anyone else really leveraging this on social media. I definitely don't see it in tourism. So let's go through this, break it down one by one. Secret number one, looking at that attractive character, you as a business need to know who you are from a personality perspective. What's the personality of your brand or your business that you want to communicate, and is that coming through really clear? So in order to do that, what do we have to do? We need to establish who that attractive character is. So let's take a look at Cozy Cabins, small resort in BC. So in working with Cozy Cabins, they had no clear identity as far as the personality went in their posts and in their social media. Had cool pictures, but no clear identity. So what we did is we went in and had a conversation with them, looked at, hey, how is it that you really want to come across? Now, this might take a little bit of time, but it doesn't have to be complicated. This is what the brand personality looked like for Cozy Cabins. They want it to be direct, clean, and cheeky. And then there was opportunity in the sub voice to look at, hey, we want to make sure that we maintain honesty. We're okay with using examples and parables, and we're also okay with being polarized. If we think something strongly, we're okay with standing our ground on that and making a few enemies along the way. So what does that look like? What does that look like? We'll show you guys a few slides down what that looks like, but we're not quite done here because when we're looking at this attractive character, we also, as part of that conversation, we need to be really clear on who we're talking to. So before we move on to actually showing you what this looks like, let's make sure that you're really clear who you're talking to. Another organization that I've worked with is this company here called Freshline Moto Adventure Club. These guys do motorcycle adventures around the world. Again, when looking at their social media, they were not clear on who they were talking to, and they were having a lot of issues with trying to get engagement. And I'm going to show you guys how we took this from basically zero engagement to super high engagement, so that now these guys are able to sell their tours. They sell out every single tour close to 2 years ahead of time. So let's take a look at how we do that. We sat down and we went through and created exactly who they were going after to a high degree of detail. So this is who Freshline wanted to take on their motorcycle adventures. Notice a few things here. One, this person has a name, so that every time that you're writing to this person on social media, you're writing to one individual. Now, the reason that this is so important is because you have decided who you are as an individual from the company perspective. What's the brand personality? And on the other side of that equation, you have decided specifically who's the exact individual you're talking to. And that creates a one-to-one conversation. If you want high engagement, that's what you need to have. If you're taking notes, write down in your notepad, you need to create a one-to-one conversation to have high engagement. And that's the reason why a lot of times posts will fall flat, because you're not actually having a conversation. All you're doing is describing a picture. And that is not engaging in any way, shape, or form. So with Kurt, we have obviously his challenges, his frustrations. So where is he at emotionally? And then we also have an understanding of what are some of the demographic key points that define Kurt. We have his age, we have his marital status, we have whether he's got kids or not, and then things that he owns, things he has some emotional, what's the word I'm looking for? Let's say an emotional tie to. And it doesn't stop there. Look how much detail we go into when we're looking at this. We define what his values are. And that's important because that needs to align with how we present our own values. We've got his skills. I'm not going to say that you need to know the skills of your guest. In this case, because these guys go around the world on moto adventure trips, and they often will go to dangerous places, it becomes an important thing that this company needs to know. But for you, it doesn't have to be skills. Maybe there are other important things that you'd like to know about your guests, and you can include those if it becomes relevant. Also, note here, we have how he grew up. He's got a backstory. What are the brands that he identifies with? This is also really important because this will tell you a lot about what he values in a brand and who he's listening to. So we put these brands together, and then we actually will distill what are the unifying characteristics of those brands, because that tells us exactly what he's drawn to. And that can help us define who we want to be as an attractive character as well. So now that we've established this, we're having this one-to-one conversation, let's take a look at how that looks in the posts themselves. So let's go back to Cozy Cabins. Before Cozy Cabins defined their personality, here's what one of their posts looked like. Now, I would argue this is an amazing post. The picture is great. There's good color. This post, or this picture, was actually taken by an influencer that Cozy Cabins was partnering with. But notice here the description, the communication. So playing peekaboo with the deer cabin. Now, to most people, that looks fine, but it's not a conversation. It's a little bit playful, but it's not a conversation. It's not a one-to-one conversation. What I want you to note here are I'm going to call it the numbers or the results from this post. So we're looking at 2 comments and we're looking at 214 likes. Now, with Cozy Cabins, we went through this exercise of defining their personality. And when we defined that personality and we created the formula for it, we created a new post a few days later. So this is July 10th. Let's move forward a few days. July 17th, we defined this personality of the cheeky nature lover. One-to-one conversation, what would that look like with a cheeky nature lover personality? Here we've got the description. The Japanese have a term for self-healing called forest bathing. I guess the idea is to take a walk in the woods, let your own worries go, and absorb the zen of the forest. I keep trying it around here, and it works amazing, but people give me funny looks and tell me I'm supposed to keep my clothes on for a forest bath. What do they know? I want you guys to note the use of I. This is I'm having a conversation with you, an individual on the other side. Do you understand what that means? And you can see here where it's not just a description of the picture. There's a bit of story in it, and there's cheekiness in it, obviously, right? So we're using that personality right away. This is only a couple days later. Check this out. You went from 214 likes, 2 comments on this post, to we've got 508 likes and 8 comments. We're starting to create an engaging conversation. A few days later, or maybe I should say, what is this? 2-3 weeks later, here's another post. Again, it's like you're having a conversation with the individual on the other side. I really don't think I can handle the stress of this job. The environment is killing me. Someone bringing me a margarita and a floaty. Obviously ironic and a little bit cheeky, right? Again, check out how many likes we've got. 789 likes, a few hundred likes more than the previous post. 10 comments this time. So comments are going up, likes are going up, which means engagement is absolutely going up. Now let's fast forward by a couple of months. We keep this conversation going. It's a conversation. I don't need to read these all off to you, but it's the same formula, that cheeky nature lover, where the posts involve a bit of a visual of the nature and the surroundings, and then you're having a conversation about it with the individual on the other end, as if that conversation was ongoing and they were listening the whole time. And you can see here this use of engagement continues to increase the amount of likes and the amount of comments. So we've got 30 comments on this post, and we've got 1,400 likes. And if you're doing this correctly, you'll have comments that will refer to your use of conversation. So here's an example of that. Girl Hearts Nature, I just love your sense of humor. It makes me want to stay at your beautiful cabins even more. So pretty there. And you get comments like that again and again and again. I also want you to note at the top of the page, we've got 21,000 followers now for this Cozy Cabins account. And I will say the follower count's growing. That's kind of the idea. You want to grow your follower count at the same time that you're increasing engagement for the conversation. But keep that in mind, 21,000 followers, because the next post is going to show you another social media account that's doing this really poorly and show you what the power of this is. So 21,000 followers, we got 1,400 likes, 30 comments. Here's another social media account at that same or in that same time frame. Shell, 213,000 followers, so 10 times the amount of followers. And look at how many likes they have in the post. They don't even have as many likes, and they've got 2 comments on this post. Why? Because Shell does not understand how to have a conversation in a relevant way on social media. In other words, Shell would have a very tough time doing any kind of sales on social media. Now, maybe that's not their objective, but you can understand that there's a lot of power in using that conversation piece and getting engagement. So now that you understand that, you understand the power of having that one-to-one conversation, the question is, how do we actually create an account that people are attracted to and they stick to? How do we create a sticky account? So here's how we do that. This is this component of what makes an account, I guess, interesting enough to have people engage in the first place. What we will do is we figure out where people's passions already lie, and we do that by reverse engineering what accounts are already working, and then we make it our own. So that might be a little bit confusing. Don't worry about it. I'm going to show you exactly how we get into this. First, we want to go out and we want to find accounts that already have our customer. So that's why it's so important to understand what your customer's interests are. If I go back to Kurt, who was the guy that the motorcycle company was targeting for those motorcycle adventure tours, one of the things on his list is that he owns an older Toyota for his own adventures. So what do? We go on Instagram and we look for accounts that have older Toyotas that are clearly made for adventures. Kurt is the kind of guy that's already following these accounts. Now, we're going to look at which of these posts are doing really, really well, because that will give us an indication of what's already working. We don't need to do all the testing because these accounts have already done the work for us. So what I'll do is I'll go onto my computer. It's easier to do this on your computer than Instagram, especially if you're in Canada, because now Canada's hiding the amount of likes, but you can do this on your computer. You can go and it'll still show you the number of likes and comments. So on that same account, let's check this out. I've done some of the work here for you. What I've done is I have put together the likes and the comments on these pictures as you're going through. And what you'll notice is that some posts, for whatever reason, they're outliers. They become anomalies where they just tend to do a lot better than the posts around them. So for instance, on this page, if you looked at all the pictures here, which one is getting the most engagement? Well, it's pretty clear that the picture in the center is getting far more engagement than the posts around it. So here's what this looks like for you. Here's how you reverse engineer what's working in this post and also just in general in your audience. You have to start out by just guessing. There's no real way of knowing what makes this post more engaging than other posts other than looking for the patterns. So if we know that center picture is the picture that's getting the most engagement, we'll start guessing, and we play that game that you played when you were in kindergarten. You know, when you're in kindergarten, you play that game. What about this thing is different from the others? That's what we're doing here. We're just playing that game again. So I'm saying, okay, looking at the center post, it looks like that post has a river in the background, and that is something the other post doesn't have. It also looks like that post is the only post where it's got a picture directly front on of the vehicle. It also looks like that post has, it's a clear half picture of the Toyota from that front on perspective. Maybe it is, I don't know, maybe it's in the very background, there's mountains and trees. Maybe that's it, I'm not sure. And what I'll do for each of those guesses, I'll write that guess down on a piece of paper. So here's kind of what that looks like. I write down my guesses, I'm like, okay, from that post, here's a few of the guesses that I've got. Now I'll keep scrolling. I look for another post that's doing really well. I find a separate post that's doing really well. And if a pattern comes up again where I find another post that's an anomaly, that's done really well, has high likes, high comments, if it's got something that's the same, for instance, a river, I'll put a check mark next to this. And then I'll keep scrolling, And I might write down other guesses, but I'll keep scrolling and I'll look and I'll be like, oh, look isn't that interesting? It looks like posts that have rivers in the background tend to do really well. And I'll put a check mark next to it. And I'll keep scrolling and it keeps coming up. And then maybe I say, oh, there's another post that was an anomaly that did really well, and it looks like it's from a front-on picture. So I put a check mark next to that. And I keep scrolling, and I find, oh, you know what? There's this other post that did really, really well, and it doesn't have maybe any of the things in my list already. So I just write down my guesses. Maybe this post did well because it's the only post that's got a yellow truck in it. Or maybe this post did really well because it's got a full roof rack. And I'm writing down these guesses, and I just keep going. And as I find these patterns, I put check marks next to it, and I keep writing down my guesses. And I find patterns, and I put check marks, and I keep writing down my guesses. And what this will show you over time, if you do this, if you take an afternoon to sit down and go through this, it will tell you the patterns that are in the market that people are already interested in, passionate about, drawn to. Often your audience doesn't even know. They don't even know why they like certain things, but they do. And so you'll find that these patterns emerge. All right, so how do you take these patterns and how do you put them into your own account? There's a couple of ways of doing this. One really easy method is take the exact picture and just put it in your account. You can do that on Instagram as long as you're giving credit to the photographer and the region where that picture came from. And in every case or every instance where we've done this, the photographers have actually thanked us because we give them exposure, or the regions have thanked us because we give them exposure that they wouldn't have otherwise. So as long as you're giving credit and you're pushing people from your account to their account, you can totally do that. You can steal that. So what's this account, this Rugged Gentleman account? In this account, what we're doing is we created a personal account for Kurt so he doesn't feel like he's being sold to. And then what we'll do every once in a while is we will push to the motorcycle club. You can see in the stories here, all of the stories, they actually revert back to what's going on with the Freshline Motorcycle Club. And so it's very subtle undertone, and it's not clear in the post that it's being sold. And then every once in a while, we'll do a promotion. I'll show you guys what that looks like. But that's what this account is for, is to create an interest-based account and then take people from this account and push them into the Moto Adventures. So as you go through this account, here's what's really interesting. Turns out that, yeah, rivers they're a big seller. You can see in 3 out of the 6 posts here, these are all posts that came from different accounts, and all of these posts have already been pre-vetted as being the outliers in their own accounts. They didn't all obviously come from that Land Cruiser account. These came from other interests that Kurt had. It might be cabins, it might be horses, it might be fishing, it might be float planes, but we figure out what those patterns are. And you know what? Those patterns are so specific that we found things like Kurt loves Land Rovers, for instance, but he doesn't love just any Land Rover. He loves specifically the Land Rover Defender 110s. If you put a Land Rover Discovery in front of him, not interested, not at all. Has to be very specific. Found out Kurt loves float planes, but he doesn't love just any float planes. He very much loves yellow float planes. Do I know why those patterns are the way they are? No, I don't know, but I know that if you go and you reverse engineer it, you keep finding the same patterns pop up again and again and again, and that's what creates sticky imagery. That's what creates imagery that resonates with your audience. So what you need to go is you need to check out which accounts are the best in the world at creating engagement with your audience, with your customer base, and then reverse engineer the patterns and replicate those in your account. Now, you don't have to steal the pictures directly, especially if you are a resort or a tour company. That's not always feasible. In which case, what you do, you know the patterns, so replicate those patterns in the photos. Literally hand that pattern list to your photographer, or if you are the photographer, take those patterns and look for those opportunities to take pictures that replicate those patterns. If you're working with influencers, make sure that you are handing that list to the influencers and saying, hey, here's what we've recognized as patterns that our audience really resonates with, so that you're capturing those moments. Okay, so that's what it looks like for imagery, but we're not done there yet, because what we need to do is we need to inject our personality into this. So with the Rugged Gentleman, as opposed to being the cheeky nature lover that Cozy Cabins had created for their personality, the Rugged Gentleman looked at what Kurt's philosophy was, what his values were, and they decided to adopt a personality that was the philosophical adventurer. There's no humor in these posts, but they get super high engagement. So here you can see that the photo itself evokes adventure, and then the conversation, again, I can't stress this enough, it's important that you understand that we're having a conversation, a one-to-one conversation with your audience. So here you can see it starts off, the description, the communication is a conversation that starts, and it gets engagement. You can see this post got 2,000 likes, and it's got 31 comments. So, and those comments are relevant to the actual conversation that's happening. So we have that audience listening. We know that they're listening because we're getting that high engagement. We can also see this on the insights in the post. It'll show you how many people have saved this post, how many people have shared this post. Unfortunately, I don't have that in a graphic here. I probably should. But we're getting super high engagement that way as well. A lot of people sharing and saving these posts, which means, and these are indicators that the audience is listening. So from here, where do we go? Well, it's great that we have an audience that's listening, and a lot of social media accounts, if they get that far, that's where they stop. So how do we make sure that we're selling people a new opportunity? Well, one thing that we need to make sure is still happening is we need to ensure that we're doing everything we can to keep engagement high. And the way that we do that is often through playing games. So let's go back to Cozy Cabins and see how Cozy Cabins utilize this method. Oh, sorry guys, I apologize. I stepped ahead a slide. We need to make sure, okay, great, we've created, let me pause for a sec, step back. We need to make sure that we have a qualified audience to sell to. Obviously, that's super important. So in order to have a qualified audience that we're selling to, great that we're creating a sticky account, but that doesn't mean anything if the people that are following us won't ever buy. So how do we make sure that we are creating an engaged audience of highly qualified buyers? So here's what that looks like for Cozy Cabins. So with Cozy Cabins, they know that their target audience is families. And within families, you got to look at who's the decision maker. Within families, typically the decision maker for where this family goes on vacation is the mother. Cozy Cabins also knows that a good chunk of their audience comes from a few select cities around the world. One of those cities is Calgary. So what does Cozy Cabins do? In order to find qualified moms, so they're looking for moms that have the income and the desire to go on a vacation at that resort, what they'll do is they go and they find moms that are highly qualified. So in this case, just doing a quick search of Calgary moms, YYC moms, this account comes up, YYC Mom Adventures. She's got 898 followers, which is a good sign. It means that she doesn't have, like, she hasn't gone and paid for a bot and have 10,000 unqualified followers. This is a lady that clearly has a small group of followers in Calgary. I'm guessing that a good chunk of those followers are friends that also have kids in Calgary. That's usually the way this thing works. So we find this account. What do we do in order to make sure that this qualified follower or this qualified person is actually following us and is someone that we can sell to once we have a conversation with them? Well, what we do is we engage. We start this engagement. So we'll find a post that they've put together. So this is a post from that account. In that post, we'll go in and we'll comment something that is not a bot. So it has to be legit, where you can't have a bot replicating this, so that it's authentic. We go in there and we make a comment, and I'm not gonna say this happens every time, but it's pretty predictable. In fact, I literally put this together. I did this for the Cozy Cabins account yesterday so that I could show you guys what this would look like in a presentation, and it worked like clockwork. Go in, create a comment, and then boom, you can see at the top of the page here, that account now starts following me. Highly qualified individual. Not only are they highly qualified, they're actually an influencer in that city, in that space. Now, it doesn't have to stop there. There's lots of other opportunities how we get qualified followers that are just like this lady. So we'll go and we'll, on that same post I commented on, because it's a relatively new post, it was put up in the last couple of days, here are all the people that liked that post, which means these are all active users on Instagram. And I'll go in, I'm not gonna comment necessarily on all these people's posts, but I will just hit follow, 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 follow. And if I've created a sticky account, if I've done the homework to figure out what are the pictures that my audience resonates with, they will stick. Especially if they see that in our descriptions, we're fun, we're having a conversation, they will stick. Will everyone stick? No, not everyone will stick, but a good chunk of them will. The other thing that I will do is I will look at who are the people that had commented on this post, and those are valuable individuals, because the people that are commenting on posts, what is inherent in the fact that they're commenting on that post is that they are willing to comment on posts. And if we're posting, we want commenters on our posts, because the more comments that our posts have, then the more those posts get shown. That's the way that the social media algorithms work. So we go and we say, okay, who are the commenters on this post? We want to engage with those individuals. So you can see at the top of the page, you've got this lady, Arms on Adventures. So what do? We go to her social media profile, check out one of her posts, and then you can see here, oh, I don't have an arrow. You can see here, if you look at the comments, Cozy Cabins commented on this, again, something that a robot or a bot wouldn't do. From there, we'll also look at who else liked this post, because the people that like this post, if they're resonating with this picture, guess what? They're probably qualified people that we could sell to for Cozy Cabins. So we'll go on here and we'll hit follow, 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 follow. And again, not saying that everyone here is going to follow you, but take a look at the top of this. I couldn't make this stuff up. Literally did this again yesterday. Hit follow, 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 follow. First person on there is Calgary Dad, qualified follower. And guess what? I go back, I look, turns out that he's one of the people that followed us. This stuff still works just as well now as it did 5 years ago. So you can go in here, as long as you're creating an engaging conversation, this works. Now, this is your method for gaining qualified followers. Does it take time? Yeah, but my argument here is gonna be, what are you doing with your social media otherwise? Because if you're not doing this, if you're not building a base of qualified followers and you're not having a conversation with them, in my opinion, there's no point in doing your social media, because if it's not leading to revenue, then why do it? And that's the thing. If you go and you look at your post right now, you're not having a conversation, you're not building qualified followers, all you're doing is you're talking about your pictures, that, in my opinion, is a waste of time and a waste of budget. You might get some people looking at it through bookings, but you're not actively driving large numbers of bookings through your social media accounts, in which case, don't bother, in my opinion. So how do we take this qualified audience that we're having a conversation with and make sure that we are able to sell to them? What we want to do is we want to continue engagement. And so with Cozy Cabins, this is where I'd skipped ahead to, we play games with them. So anything that's going on at the resort, let's say that we have contests, we'll post that on social media so that we're having interaction back and forth. Here you can see we had a s'more contest where we are putting different s'mores together, we're judging them, and we're getting the online audience to judge them with us. And with that, you can see on the far right, we got comments like, oh my God, this is literally killing me. We need to be friends, because people resonate with like how we want to have a conversation with them online. Social media is meant to be social. It's meant to be a two-way conversation, and most businesses don't see it that way. Most businesses post and leave, and that's not the way that you're gonna get bookings. Other things that we do, so looking with Cozy Cabins, we engage with our current guests. So we ask them questions like, what's one thing you'd recommend to a new guest while at Cozy? This gives you an opportunity to actually showcase some of the best aspects of your resort. You get all these responses, and you can take those responses and post them right back into your stories. And you can see that individuals they're engaging with you on this. Also, there's a few other things that I think a lot of businesses are afraid to do. Ask your individuals what they hate about the experience with you, and ask them what they want. So here's an example of asking them what they want. I don't know if you can read this, but I believe that the full post was something around Cozy Cabins wants to be an amazing, unique resort. What would make coming here irresistible to you? And we got responses like this: lots of blankets, real fireplace, wood stove, good comfy places to sit. Why does this matter? I'll show you guys in a second. Let's go into a few other questions that we've asked. Here, first off the bat, this is a strange question coming from a resort, but what do you hate about family vacations? Challenge, write a headline for an article you'd want me to write. So looking at, hey, we don't even have to come up with our own headlines or a blog posts. We can ask our audience what they'd be interested in, and then we just write that. We have a vision to discover the best family retreat on earth. So I'm going to the post here, obviously. If you're a mom, what's your deepest desire? We ask them what they hate and we ask them what they want. And we get engagement. We get responses from individuals. So what do we hate? We got dozens and dozens and dozens of responses on this. I literally took this screenshot maybe half an hour after we posted this. And already at that point, I think we had about a dozen responses. At the end of this campaign, dozens and dozens and dozens. I wish I actually had the screenshot for all of them. But this information is awesome for us because it tells us where we can improve. It tells us where we can actually serve the guest at a higher level, what they're looking for. It also gives us our own marketing because all we do is we take this and we turn it around to our marketing. I'll show you guys what that looks like in a second. We ask them what their desires are. They tell us. Now, here's where we actually utilize that information. And this is why social media is not about social media. It's about having a conversation that makes you better at serving your guest. Watch this. So we ask them the question, if you're mom, what's your deepest desire? We get those answers, right? We get those answers. We can take those answers and we translate them directly into our marketing. This is an ad that we've put together. And if you're looking at this, you can see where it's important to moms that their child connects with nature. It's important that mom can let her guard down and relax while kids are exploring. And you can see that that comes through. Right in the copy of the ad, a vacation should be a place that feels natural, a place that is safe to let your kids play while you relax with a book on the porch. We're taking exactly what the moms are saying and we're putting that into our marketing. And guess what? These ads, they're crushing it. These ads get tons of engagement and they create tons of booking for us. It doesn't have to be paid ads either. We do this often with our own organic posts. All we're doing is we're having a back and forth conversation. We're listening to exactly what our guests are telling us. And then we are recreating the solutions, the answers for them, or at least being empathetic with them on social media. Here's another thing. We were asking moms, again, what's your deepest desire? A couple of other responses here. Here's an example of what this looks like. Here's the request. This mom wants her kids to have fun and wonderful childhood memories. We ask ourselves at the business, so with Cozy Cabins, we'd say, okay, let's sit down and establish what is it that we can be doing that is absolutely, unequivocally going to leave a child with a memory that they will never forget. We processed that, and then what we did is we created an offer. So Cozy Cabins is sending out these treasure boxes, and we didn't want to skimp out on it. We wanted to make sure that this was so real looking, so cool that, and created this sense of adventure. We send this off to the kids, and there's a treasure hunt that happens at the resort, but we send this ahead of time so that it creates a high level of anticipation, and we make it look so real and so believable that the kids think that this is absolutely real, and they remember it. The reason that we made this so authentic looking is because we wanted to create something physically that they wouldn't throw away. We want them to actually hold on to this. We want to make sure that this is something that's always in their space, that's always a physical reminder for them. And we did all of this because we're listening through social media. So what does that look like from a tour company perspective? Let's take a look at Freshline, the motorcycle club. Pretty simple. Go on to Instagram. We post this as a post. If you ride, or if you could ride anywhere in the world, where would you go? First of all, notice the engagement. I don't have the exact number of comments on here, but clearly, fair number of comments. After scrolling through all of the comments here, we noticed that the winner, as far as location, was South America. So we don't have to dream up where we want to go next. We're just like, hey, this is what most people are looking for. So guess what the next offer becomes? Oh, look at that, a trip to South America. So we have that trip to South America. Now here's, again, if you're gonna run a promotion, we're following that 80-20 rule. 80% of the posts, at least, that go out have no promotion whatsoever. 80% are just entertaining, fun, creating that conversation piece. From there, we say it's okay every once in a while to say, hey, we listened to what you hate, we listened to what you want, and we created something new from that, and then you offer that back to your own audience. And when we do that, we create a series of posts to make sure that we are really clear about the importance of this offer. As in, don't post just once and then leave it. If you post just once and leave it, it wouldn't surprise me if the majority of your audience never saw that post and never took you up in your offer. So we run this as a launch campaign. And the way that we do this is we put together a series of posts. Here's a post that we put together for Freshline. And what you'll notice going through this is that we don't stop at one post. We go through 10 posts every day, and we have a countdown. We have a countdown saying there's an end to this as well, where you this is the end of the ability to put applications in for this experience or this trip. You can also do this if you have a resort. All you do is you can either add a bonus or maybe a discount. I'm not a big fan of discounts. I like bonuses, but add something in where they only get it if they book before a certain time. We go through, we run all these posts, and here's what you'll see. From these posts, when you're really clear about what it is you're offering and you're clear about when they have to apply or what time frame they have to either apply or submit a form or whatever it is on your end, this is what it looks like. So for Freshline, they had an application form, pretty simple. They did it through Google Forms. You can see at the top of the page here, 4 forms came in that, I don't know if it was that day or within that hour or whatever it was, but for that campaign, look at this. There was 105 responses from individuals putting their applications in to go on a trip that, in this case, I believe that trip was somewhere in the vicinity of $4,000. So $4,000 trip to go on an adventure with these guys, and we had 105 applications. Freshline, I can tell you, we're still working together with Freshline. Freshline has sold out every single one of their trips for the last couple of years, and they haven't put a dime into paid marketing because they understand the importance of having a back and forth conversation. This stuff works. It absolutely works, guys. It's still working today. So what do you need to do? Just go and do it. Go and do it. Put it together. I hope this video inspired you. Utilize it. Go back, rewatch this video. I've put together forms for you for this module. There's a clear Google Doc that actually walks you through step by step what this process needs to look like, and it breaks down each of those components of what you need to be looking at and how to execute on each of these things in detail. So that'll be accompanied with this video. All right, good luck. Get out there, use your social media, and use it to go create bookings for yourself. If you have any questions, absolutely reach out to us and let us know, and we'll make sure that we're supporting you through that process. All right. Go take action, otherwise you're not going to see any results from it. We'll see you guys in the next video.